Good evening. My name is Lyndsay and my call is Mike 6 Yankee Mike Bravo, and I am speaking to you on behalf of Nunsfield House Amateur Radio Group with regard to Mills on the Air. In the beginning, the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings was founded in 1877 by William Morris, the famous artist, poet and designer. It was a direct response to the Victorian restorationists of the day that were doing more harm than good. By 1929, it was being recognised that many of the great British mills were falling into disrepair or had fallen down completely. It was decided that a doomsday book of mills would be created and that SPAB would be the ones to do it. By 1931, the mills section of SPAB was official. This excerpt from the Evening News and Star from the 7th of August 1929 shows us the very beginning of our story. Article reads, Vanishing Windmills. A doomsday book of windmills is to be compiled by the Society for the Preservation of Ancient Buildings in an effort to save this picturesque feature of the English countryside from total extinction. Windmills have been rapidly disappearing in recent years, and some have fallen down through old age, others have been pulled down as useless. The village milling industry is dead, so there is no hope of new mills being built to replace them. We shall compile a complete list of every windmill in the country, an official of the society told a Daily Post representative yesterday, and then publish a book with photographs. Local funds will be started to purchase mills that are threatened with demolition, and anyone that hears of a threatened mill should inform us. If something is not done quickly, there will soon be no windmills left in this country. Within days, the Society were reporting mills being saved under their guidance. England saves windmills. In its campaign to preserve windmills, the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings in England recently arranged for the perpetuation of two. These are at Rottingdean and at Reigate Heath. It has also sent out word that should anyone hear that a windmill is to be demolished, he should notify the Society so that efforts may be made to save the picturesque building. The mill on the right, as shown, is as Rottingdean Windmill, circa 1929, just prior to it being saved. By 1930, in the January, there were pleas for funding and help in almost all newspapers, and a new title had been bestowed upon the writer, Windmills Secretary. Article reads, A Sussex Windmill. Dear Sir, there is a fine specimen of a post and roundhouse mill situated on the top of a hill at Bodle Street Green near Hailsham in Sussex. This windmill has not worked for some time, and as no tenant can be found for it, the owners have decided to pull it down for the sale of the timbers, which have been valued at £250 approximately. In the recent gales, Sussex has lost two similar mills and now possesses few of this old type of windmill. The Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings would like to save this mill, but cannot do so unless the public will handsomely assist with contributions. It asks that those who may wish to contribute to this end write to me at the Society's offices in Buckingham Street, WC2, and let me know how much they are prepared to subscribe. Yours faithfully, the Windmills Secretary. By June of 1931, the Mills section of SPAB was officially formed as its own entity, and is mentioned here in the Wokingham Times in the July. Under Town Talk, there are just a few windmills in the Wokingham district and at Shinfield, but their number is fast dying out. an organised attempt to save them from a threat of total disappearance has been launched by the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings. The Society has formed a special windmill committee and have drawn up a definite plan which, with public support, should go far towards preserving windmills. It is hoped it will be well taken up. So now we know where the mills section came from, and you have a little idea of the type of history that we are dealing with. Moving forward in time now to the first recorded mill activations. SPAB had by now created a National Mills Day, started in 1984 and widely reported in the newspapers of the day. But Mills on the Air itself was still not a reality. Yet. On the 2nd of May 1987, Herne Mill was activated as G6HWM, operator name Dave. We only know this due to the existence of a carefully preserved QSL card. At the time, Mills on the Air was not a regular event, but this may well be the first inklings of that idea. And you can see on the back of the card here that it was sent to G3FTH and confirming the QSO on the 2nd of May 1987 on FM, and it looks like he was getting out quite well as well, and signed off 7.3's Dave. During the writing of this talk, we contacted the East Kent Radio Society, who have confirmed that they were actually using the mill as their home QTH for many years, from 2004 onwards. They believe that the Dave that signed this card may well have been the former chairman of the Friends of Herne Mill, Dave Bean, G3TJQ. In August 1989, Herne Mill was again activated, and this time 2 other mills took part, Crabble Mill and another as yet unnamed mill in the Kent region. This actually made the papers. And the article reads, Mill radio project to hit the airwaves. A radio station is to be established at Herne Mill later this month. Amateur radio enthusiasts will be trying to make contact with the station, set up as part of the Mill's programme of special events for the summer. Similar stations will operate from 2 other historic mills in East Kent, including Crabble Mill at Dover. Each will have a distinctive QSL card, and any amateur station making contact with all 3 will find the cards make a map of East Kent displaying the mills. The call signs of Herne Mill will be GB6 Herne Windmill and GB2, and operation is expected to be on shortwave bands as well as VHF and VHF. Just a side note, I think that's meant to say VHF and UHF. Operating times on Sunday the 27th of August will be 11 to 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and there will be an opportunity to visitors to have the operations explained to them. The stations are expected to have a range of about 100 miles, and some operation is also expected on Monday the 28th of August. National Mills Day itself was starting to attract radio amateurs, and in 1994 this card was sent from Willesborough Windmill in Kent. Was Willesborough the unnamed mill from 1989? Fast forward again, this time to 1996. A young lady by the name of Jasmine Marshall, G4 KFP, was looking over the script for the RSGB newsfeed when she came across a curious request. SPAB seeking assistance with matching mills to operators in order to help celebrate 10 years of National Mills Day. At the time, Jasmine was a member of the Denby Dale Amateur Radio Society, and her partner Bill was the vice president. It was decided that they'd take on the challenge. After all, SPAB had only asked for half a dozen mills to be covered off. That wouldn't be hard, right? Jasmine had some initial difficulty persuading the club to take on the event, and so she decided she'd simply do it herself. There was not enough wine or chocolate in the world that could have prepared her for what was coming. Part of the initial difficulty getting the event going was that the mills themselves were unaware that SPAB even ran a National Mills Day. So once Jasmine had explained this to them, along with some of the intricacies of amateur radio, she ended up with more than 30 mills interested in taking part. In her words, the number of chocolate consumed was increasing. Now to get the radio clubs involved, and in an era that was just getting on the internet, this was not as straightforward as sending an email. Once she managed to get hold of the right people at the clubs, she then had to convince them that this single-day event was a worthwhile cause. And it must have worked. The next challenge came with pictures. Jasmine thought that each site that took part should have its very own special QSL card, individual, collectible, and also informational. She enlisted the help of Kevin, G1FYS, who spent many hours creating the cards that would be issued out. These were created by using line drawings of the mills that took part and adding in a little of the mill's history to the card. We have an example of this on the next page. And this card shows Upminster Windmill, and again this card was sent to G3FTH from the Upminster site, and it gives a little bit of detail there about when the site was built, who the millers were, and a little bit of the history, and when it was repaired, and where you can get further information on the mill, which is fantastic. We do love to see all of these things being popped onto these cards. It was a phenomenal amount of work. So the first year of Mills on the Air was a massive effort, with the creation of not only QSL cards for 30 plus stations, but also for an award certificate designed by William, G4IOD, a special logbook, and all of the posted literature that had to go out to the mills taking part. We've been incredibly lucky to find that Polegate Windmill, under the operation of GB2PW, have a copy of the original certificate still on their internal display. The even more amazing thing here is that there is another one of the cards from GB2BWB, Bromham Watermill. The operator that ran the station at the time was Anthony Hodge, G4UPY. The images of the display have been kindly provided by his wife Rosalind. Anthony is now sadly silent key. By the time the event arrived, the team were wiped out from all the work they'd put in, but Jasmine and Bill had booked in at Gleaston Watermill in Ulverston, 130 miles away from the club. And this is Gleaston Watermill. Gleaston Watermill was a great venue for Bill and Jasmine, and they made the papers, even if the papers did get the finer points very wrong. The article reads, "Gleaston Watermill makes the waves on CB radio." Oh dear. Gleaston Watermill was one of more than 300 mills taking part in National Mills Day. 45 working mills across the country were in action to celebrate the day on the Sunday, and others opened their doors to the public and held special events. Gleaston is a restored 17th century watermill with a working water wheel and cafe next door to attract visitors. Nearby Roman remains have been found. It joined mills from as far afield as Wimbledon Mill on Wimbledon Common in London, Kings Mill in West Sussex, formerly owned by the poet Hilaire Belloc, and Maud Foster Mill in Lincolnshire, Britain's tallest mill. Gleaston Mill was taken over for the day by radio enthusiasts who contacted colleagues in other mills all over the country. Caption reads, "Hamming it up." Radio enthusiasts Bill and Jasmine Marshall set up their own radio station at Gleaston Watermill for the day on National Mills Day. The event was announced all over the national news, and there were several articles that appeared. National Mills Day, Dover Amateur Radio Club using call sign GB2CCM made contact with 75 stations. Hugh Burton was happy with the contacts made and interest shown by visitors. Horton Mill near St Ives is opening up this Sunday, and local amateur radio clubs will be joining the fun, sending messages from 80 mills dotted around the country. The biggest supporters seem to have been Gleaston Watermill, with newspaper articles and adverts all mentioning amateur radio. The 10th annual National Mills Day was a roaring success for SPAB and us. Articles read that the historic watermill is going high-tech by becoming an amateur radio station to celebrate National Mills Day. The mill near Ulverston is hosting the event and tuning into the nation's airwaves to mark the 50th anniversary of the wind and watermill section of the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings. Special event stations which involve amateur radio operators are being set up at mills across the country, and Gleaston has been given the special call sign of GB2GW. Coordinating the event linking participating watermills is Denbydale Amateur Radio Society, Denbydale, West Yorkshire, and the RSGB. Contact cards between mills taking part have been prepared with a line drawing of individual mills on one side and potted mill histories on the reverse, plus radio contact information. Certificates will also be given to amateur radio stations contacting more than 10 mills on the day, which could involve amateurs worldwide. Gleaston Watermill will be one of 33 mills setting up as radio stations on the day, most on high frequency but with some on VHF. The mill will be open as usual from 11 AM until 5 PM. So as you can see, just from these two articles, Gleaston, really big supporters. Now you may have noticed we put a little star next to the 10th annual National Mills Day. Well, this is due to the conflicting information that is currently available. Our records start in 1984, which would actually have made this the 12th annual National Mills Day. And SPAB have confirmed that there were a few hiccups with dates back then. Moving on from the inaugural event, Jasmine and Bill started getting ready for the second year. But what they did not predict was just how popular it was going to be. 1997 totaled 137 mills being activated. It must have been utter chaos. The 1997 event was spinning along quite nicely, and with so many stations taking part, there was a lot to do. Jasmine had, however, arranged for something quite special to take place at Outward's Mill. The acclaimed actress Judi Dench was going to be in the area and going live on air. The article on the left is actually about Cogglesford Watermill. However, it does mention Dame Judy's visit to Outward and reads, Cogglesford Mill was the centre of attention on Sunday as Sleaford celebrated National Mills Day. Despite appalling weather, almost 100 visitors went along to join the celebrations, which included a radio link-up with 90 other mills across the world. From Sleaford, visitors were able to link up with 32 mills, including Ealing Tide Mill in Southampton, a mill in Wales, and another in Outward, Surrey, where actress Judi Dench was speaking to fellow mill fans. Sleaford Navigation Trust also used the event to promote a clean-up of the Slee. While Dame Judy was there at Outward to present a SPAB plaque to the newly reopened Outwards Mill, it was too good an opportunity to miss, and she was soon transmitting on air. Sending a warm greeting from GB2 OWS to GB2 GGM. Well, short and sweet, it cements her in our history quite firmly, and we are happy to have her as part of the legacy of the event. Mills on the Air was officially on the radar of many amateurs, including those from other countries. Operators from South Africa, Holland and all four corners of the UK took part, and with the event now being a full weekend, more could take part than ever. The newspapers were all abuzz with news of the event coming up, and there were several large write-ups for the 1997 event. Again, Gleaston Watermill were the biggest voice among many, taking out adverts that primarily showed amateur radio as the thing to come see. The National Trust put a number of ads in the paper for their mills. This one shows Horton Mill in the centre near Huntingdon, who were taking part in the event. North Ferriby United Radio Society took part at Skidby Windmill and were recorded in the papers. Some great press for the mill and for the club. And on the right you can see a photograph of the mill with the North Ferriby United Radio Society chairman at the time, David Taylor. On the left you can see the ad that Skidby had put out, and below just a little invitation by the Radio Society itself on the National Mills Day. The next club we find mentioned is the Cunninghame and District Amateur Radio Club. They activated Dalgarvan Mill in Kilwinning, North Ayrshire. Articles read, the historic Dalgarvan Mill at Kilwinning took part in an all-day worldwide radio hookup. 400 mills across Britain threw open their doors for National Mills Day on Sunday. Cunninghame District Amateur Radio Club was there trying to break the record for the number of mills contacted on the day. They tried to speak to their counterparts at 4 mills in South Africa and 1 in Holland. Photograph to the right shows Radio Club members Alan Smith and George Anderson with Sheila Tandy and founder member John McRae. But of course, Gleaston Watermill have some of the largest amounts of press. So on the left we have the ad that they took out to say that this is what's coming, and that Furness Amateur Radio Society would introduce us to the world of shortwave radio, which is always lovely. The centre article says a day to mill around, and that talks more about National Mills Day, but it does say that we're going to be on the air. And on the right, photo focus on the fun at Gleaston Watermill Open Day, and tells us about the high-tech links helping visitors to tune in. And there are a number of pictures there that do quite date this to 1997, especially with that computer there on one of those pictures. In 1998, Jasmine took a step back from organising of the event, and the team at Denby Dale took over. Headed up by Gerald Edinburgh, G3 SDY, a new era was beginning. Jasmine and Bill's Herculean efforts to get this event going will forever be the stuff of legend. The records are not as full as we would like for the next few years, and we are quite reliant on the newspapers for snippets and details. 1998 was the last year of big splashy articles, but the event itself persevered. So these are the articles from 1998. The first of which is Crake Hall Calling. Crake Hall Watermill, which is open every weekend during the summer, will have an added attraction on Sunday to mark National Mills Day. Hambleton Amateur Radio Society will run a station from the mill with a call sign GB2CHW. More than 33 mills will be host to amateur radio stations on Sunday, and at Crake Hall they hope to contact many all over the country and possibly in Ireland and Holland. The next article says Lead in the Air. England's highest tourist attraction will be piloting the airwaves tomorrow when it joins in at the celebrations for National Mills Day. And this mentions the Bishop Auckland Amateur Radio Club and their call GB0KLM. At the bottom we have ham radio on the air from the top of Windmill. We have a chap called Rob Denton broadcasting from the top of North Leverton Windmill, and they were officially operating from inside the mill. Looks like they did have a little mishap with the electric generator running out of petrol. Always good fun. And the one on the right says double delight for mill buffs, and that is the Drapers Windmill and members of the Hildeston Radio Club who were setting up there. So quite a few really nice articles coming up on that, which is always nice to see. Now, the early 2000s were a difficult time for many amateur radio events. The foot and mouth plague put paid to many events in 2001 and 2002, and it meant that some events stopped and never started back up again. Fortunately, Mills on the Air survived. The highest tourist attraction in England, Kilhope Mining Museum, had this lovely write-up in 2000, stating they'd taken part for the past couple of years and reached over 100 stations worldwide. So again, this is the Bishop Auckland Amateur Radio Club, and it is said by the museum manager of the time, Ian Forbes, that they do love seeing the club there, and they enjoy the challenge of contacting other mills, sending the name of Kilhope around the globe. One of the members from East Kent Radio Society has very kindly sent over a copy of the station listing for 2008, which shows 40 active stations for that weekend. One mill that was taking part was Gelligroes in Wales, who had been part of the event from the start. She has a long history of her own in amateur radio. The owner of this mill's son, Artie Moore, is reported to have heard the SOS from the Titanic, but his report to the local authorities was ignored. He was later hired on by Marconi and went on to hold a senior position there. In 2009, a change happened. Dutch Mills in the Air began. In Holland and the Netherlands, the mills are primarily known as polder mills. These are water pumps for land reclaim, much like the water pump mills on the Fens near Cambridge. At this time, this was only for Dutch participants. Then in 2010, Germany wanted their own day too, so Moontag was born. Germany have over 7,600 mills that are on their national register, and that is a huge amount. Then in 2017, Australian amateur Tony Fowler began the Australian chapter of Mills on the Air. This was from Anderson's Mill in Smeaton, and he and his club have operated from there almost every year since. Worth a mention here is that all of these mills weekends started out on different days, and slowly they're all becoming in line with the original Mills on the Air at weekend. The last part of the middle of the talk is a mention of the GMA. The Global Mountain Activity Group run a year-long Mills Award scheme. This is a great resource for us, as well as you, to find local mills, as they have over 1,000 logged on the site. It's also an opportunity to maybe try for one of their awards. So now we move to the present, and in 2023, Bernard and Jelle, the organisers of the Dutch Mills Weekend, stood down due to ill health. There was no successor to take on the event at the time. Very few people in the UK knew about this, and so the event hype slowly began to fade. In 2024, Denbigh Dale Amateur Radio Club, formerly Denbigh Dale Radio Society, had decided that this would be their last event. An event that had begun 28 years prior and had activated over 660 locations. Yes, many are duplicates, and we do have nearly 15 years of data currently missing. But it was about to slowly slide into obscurity, and no one knew. This brings us to 2025. In March, Lyndsay Latimer M6YMB discovered that the Mills event was no longer being served by DDARC and offered to take it on. At the same time, Lyndsay Latimer M6YMB, me, had asked the club via social media where we were to send the registrations into. Initially, I was told that the Dutch Mills were looking after it, and then I was told that actually Stefan was the new contact. That was great news. This was early in March, and all of a sudden, we had to move our rears into DEFCON 1. I'd already got the social media ready, and Stefan had a logo for us to use, just in case we were asked to take on the event. It's nothing like being prepared. And I had a bright idea or three. This left less than 12 weeks to put in place a full 12 months of advertising and raising awareness that the event had new guardians. On April the 1st, the RSGB kindly put a post on their social media page letting everyone know that the event was taking place and where to send details to, and that really helped our numbers. One of the fantastic features of the early Mills on the Air event was that the mill history was included with every QSL card. While we were not going to create a card for every mill, I decided to make full use of my Ancestry subscription. A most useful Christmas gift indeed. And I was still writing mill histories days after the event had ended. But this had an unexpected side effect. Windmills and watermills from across the country began to follow the page. Mill hoppers, this is what the enthusiasts call themselves, came to the page in droves. And finally, they started visiting the operating mills. So, after spending many hours in front of the computer for both myself and Stefan, missed sleep, forgotten cups of tea, several bouts of unladylike language when things didn't go quite right, it was the night before the event. Stefan was off to activate Hege Windmill in Derbyshire on the Saturday morning, and if I felt up to it, I would be going too, complete with my laptop to ensure that the socials ran smoothly. Our activation weekend went without a hitch, and we ended the weekend with 65 mills registered, which was the most since 2016. The event was a success, and we, much like Jasmine and Bill 29 years ago, were shattered. There was a nice takeaway and a bottle of full-fat fizzy pop waiting, but there was no rest for the wicked, as they say. Radcom very kindly ran an article for us about the event, and this ran to 3 pages. We had so much more that could have gone in, but there was only so much room. The August issue of Radcom 2025 is still available online with your RSGB login. But just in case, here's a quick snapshot of some of the things that went off over that weekend. So into the future. 2026 marks 30 years of the Mills on the Air event. It is one of the longest running events on the British amateur radio calendar. And we hope, as a couple and as a club, to be able to take the event through for another 20 years at least. Age tends to get the better of us all. We sincerely hope you will join us in making the next 30 years of Mills on the Air a success. So this is the end for now. So thank you one and all for listening, and Stefan, myself and the team at Nunsfield House Amateur Radio Group hope to hear you on the airwaves soon. 7 threes. And just a reminder, Mills on the Air is the 9th and 10th of May 2026. We also organise British Inland Waterways on the Air, and this year that is the 29th and 31st of August 2026. Thank you. Goodbye.